In this video, we will try to understand the OSI model, which is a 7-layered conceptual framework for understanding the networking concepts. We will understand the OSI model and will understand why the basic understanding of OSI model is important for the good system design. So without any further ado, let's dive into the video. OSI model, or the Open System Interconnected Model, is a conceptual framework used to describe the functioning of the networking systems. Please focus on the word conceptual here. We do not use OSI model in the practical implementations, but this model gives us a very conceptual overview of the networking among the devices. So in order to understand the OSI model, we will listen a story. So there was a king, and let's say his name was King A, and he was willing to send a message to the another king, and let's say the name of the other king was King B. So the King A wanted to say hi to King B. So what the king will do? Will the king ride the message, ride on a horse and will deliver the message? No, the king will not do that. So what the king will do? He will ask one of the minister to write the message. So the minister will write down the message. So he will pick up the paper and will write the message to be delivered to the other king. Now, what the minister will do? Will the minister go ahead and deliver the message? No. So instead of delivering the message, the minister will pass the message to the translator. So what job does the translator do? The translator will translate the message, encrypt it and compress it. So he will translate the message in the language the other king can understand. He will encrypt the message so that if the message is lost in commute, no one else is able to understand the message, and he will compress the message in order to make it more efficient to transfer. The translator will pass the message to the secretariat. The task of the secretariat is to check the policies. The secretariat will check whether they are allowed to communicate with King B or not, whether they are in a good relation with the King B or not. So what does the secretariat do? They negotiate the communication. They will check whether they should communicate with King B or not. Once the message gets the green flag from the secretariat, the message will be transferred to the middle manager. What does the middle manager do? He will break the large message into smaller chunks, and also he will add the numbering on those messages so that on the other end, that is at the side of the receiver knows how to assemble those messages and to make sense of it. So middle manager breaks the messages into smaller messages and also assigns a number to tell them in what order one should assemble those messages. Now after that, middle manager will forward it to the next person in the chain. Now the next person will be the mail room. So what does the mail room does? So mail room will add the address on top of the mail. So earlier our message was something like to King B from King A, but now the mail room will write the address of King A and the King B. So it will address something like that: the mighty king of the north next to the river, or the mighty king of the south next to the hills. After that, message will be passed to the enveloping guy, who will wrap the entire message into an envelope and will put the stamp of his kingdom on top of that. So the envelope guy will get the message and will put the stamp of his kingdom on top of that. And finally, the message will be delivered to the rider, who will ride on the horse and will deliver the message to the king bee. So these were the steps in order to transfer a message from a king A to king B. So the message got encrypted and everything happened on that. So the journey of the message will be from top to bottom at the side of the sender, and the journey of the message will be from bottom to top at the side of the receiver. So we have seen the journey of a message across the kingdom now. Now we can see these 7 steps that was taken to deliver a message to another kingdom as the 7 layers of the OSI model. These 7 people were equivalent to the 7 layers of the OSI model. Minister was writing the message. So that is equivalent to the application layer. So what will the application layer do? Application layer will write down the message. Similarly, what task was done by the translator? The translator's job was to translate the message, encrypt it and compress it. So the same task has been done by the presentation layer or the layer 6 of the OSI model. Similar to Secretariat, the session layer negotiates the communication. It controls the ports and session of the data packet. And after that, what does the middle manager do? Middle manager breaks the big message into smaller chunks. So that task is done by the transport layer. So transport layer breaks the big message into smaller messages and will transmit it using the TCP or UDP protocol. After that, what does the mailroom guy do? Mailroom guy will add the address on top of the message, and the same task is performed by the network layer, which adds the IP address on the top of the message packet. After that, the envelope guy will wrap the message into the envelope and put the stamp of his kingdom on top of that. Similar to the data link layer, which adds the physical address of the device on top of the message. And finally, the equivalent to the writer is the physical layer, which transports the message from point A to point B. So let's go ahead and see all those layers one by one. So we will start with the application layer. So application layer is the layer of the OS which interacts with the user. So by the application layer, we mean to say the application layer protocols such as HTTP, FTP, SSH. We do not mean the software application which interact with the user. Software applications like browser, terminals are not included in the application layer. So after the application layer, the data is passed to the presentation layer, and the presentation layer performs the translation of the data so that it can be ingested into the other layers and can be transferred over the network. Presentation layer also performs compression so that less data is to be transferred across the wire. Presentation layer also provides the mechanism of encryption and decryption of data. So data is encrypted at the side of the sender and decrypted at the side of the receiver. SSL is the example of a presentation layer protocol. So after the presentation layer, the data is passed to the session layer. So what does the session layer do? Session layer has the responsibility of creating, managing, and terminating the connections. This layer also performs authorization and authentication. After that, the data is passed to the transport layer. What does the transport layer do? Transport layer breaks the large message into a smaller message. So suppose we are having this large message, transport layer will break this large message into two smaller messages. It will also add the source and destination port number to identify the application which is targeted to accept those packets. Transport layer also creates a checksum of the data segment. This checksum is used to check whether some data is corrupted or lost during the transmission. If the segment is corrupted, this layer also provides the retransmission facility for the corrupted data packets. TCP and UDP are the two transport layer protocols which are used to transfer the packet from one point to another. Transport layer also provides the mechanism of a flow control. So suppose we are having our server and this is our client, and let's say server has a capability of sending 100 Mbps data on the wire, while the client has the capability of taking only 1 Mbps of data. So the transport layer will help us to control the flow of data from the server on the client. And after the transport layer, the data will be transferred to the next layer, and that is the network layer. The network layer will add the source and the destination IP address on the data packet, and it will also help us to route the data packet and to determine what path it has to take in order to reach the destination. There can be multiple paths for a data packet to reach from point A to point B. The network layer comes up with the protocols that help the data packet to find the shortest path that it has to take in order to reach point B from point A. And after that, we have layer number 2, which is the data link layer. The data link layer will add the information of the physical device on the packet. So every system comes with the hardware interface to connect with the network, and that hardware interface is known as the MAC address. The task of the data link layer is to add the MAC address to the data frame. And the last layer is the physical layer, which will convert the binary information into electric signal if we are transferring using wire, or into the radio signal if we are using the wireless protocol for the transfer of the signal. So what we have seen till now, we have seen that application layer write down the data, presentation layer will translate the data, compress it, and do the encryption on top of that. Session layer will check for the authorization and authentication. Transport layer will segment the data into smaller chunks and also decide the protocol of transmission, that is TCP or UDP. The network layer will add the information related to the IP addresses. Data link layer will add the information of the physical device, that is the MAC address. And finally, the physical layer that will convert the binary data into signal and will transfer it across the network. So these were the 7 layers of the OSI model. Now let's understand why do we need to understand the theoretical conceptual framework of the OSI model. So the understanding of OSI model is very important for us for designing very good systems. In the later part of this series, we will come across the many things like load balancers. We will see level 7 load balancer, layer 4 load balancer, and layer 3 load balancer. So the information of what does these layers do will help us to understand the concept in much details. We will also come across different type of proxies such as level 7 type of proxy. So that's why it is very important for us to understand the OSI models. So guys, that's all for the video. Please like, share and subscribe the channel, and see you guys in the next video.